Today we're going to take a look at the Russ Thompson turn signal switch for factory 5 cars. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are going to take a look at the Russ Thompson turn signal switch today. This is one of those products that is well known in the Factory 5 community. Many people have used this particular product in their Factory 5 coupes and in their roadsters for a long time. What we're going to show you today is a modification that I haven't seen before. I've never seen anybody do this particular modification to Russ's turn signal switch. So follow along as we kind of take you through this modification step by step. Alright guys, what we're going to do here is we are going to disassemble the turn signal switch as supplied by Russ. And Russ, if this voids the warranty, sorry buddy. As you can see here, we've already taken off the loom that Russ installs over the outside of the wires, and honestly I've already had this apart once, but I'm going to take you guys through it anyways, and any of the tape that Russ had on here when he shipped it. So what you're first going to do is you're going to locate this set screw right here. Now you don't want to back this set screw out too far, you only want to back it out just enough so that the hub will move on the shaft. Then what you're going to do is carefully pull the two pieces apart. Take the shaft and just put it off to the side right now. You're not going to need that again until we go for reassembly. Then turn it over so it's facing up, that you can see the top terminal portion of it. You'll see the two terminals right here for the right and left. And then inside here, just outside of this inner ring, you're going to see a snap ring. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab our snap ring pliers and a small screwdriver, because this is a very thin snap ring. And so as you open it up, you're actually going to have to use a small screwdriver to pry up the sides of it so you don't distort the actual snap ring itself. Alright everyone, I want to show you these snap ring pliers because they're really cool. I got these a number of years ago. I'm not even sure if they're made anymore. These are channel lock and the part number is a 927. They come with generic tips, so there's probably 6 sets of tips that go on the end of these, and they have a little set screw on each side to remove the tips and put different tips in them. So you can get pointed tips, you can get the standard pin tips like I have in here now. I think, like I said, I think there's 6 different sets of tips, and each set of tips is double-ended as well. So if you have 6 different sets of tips and each side is 2, of course you have 12 different types of tips. They're awesome. Anyways, what makes them even more awesomer is that they're not just expansion snap ring pliers. If you take and move this lever, this red lever, from one side to the other, they will change directions. And now what were expansion snap ring pliers are now compression snap ring pliers. So if you're only going to buy one set of snap ring pliers, and like I said, I don't know if these are still available or not, this is such a cool set to have because they work both ways. So moving on, what we're going to do is we're going to take the snap ring pliers, we're going to get them in here against the inside of the snap ring, we're going to open these up, and then we're going to work that snap ring off, and it normally doesn't pop off that easy, but it did. And we're going to set that off to the side, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take the inner sleeve and we're going to work it out. Now don't be alarmed, because when you pull this thing off far enough, there are 2 little spring-mounted pins that are going to move forward. And they're these right here. So these are the stops that the turn signal switch uses to activate and deactivate the turn signal. So when we put this back together, I'll show you how it goes back together, but don't be alarmed when this thing pops out, because it's actually riveted in. It's not going to actually fall out, but it's going to come forward and you're going to think, oh, how do I put this back together? It's not that difficult at all. So we can take this part and put it off to the side. This is the commutator ring for the terminals for the actual turn signal switch. What we're working on is the button on the end for the horn. And as I said earlier, I already took this apart. I was just waiting for the switches that I ordered to arrive. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to change out that momentary button that Russ supplies in the end of the turn signal switch. And we're going to replace it with a latching push button. So here you go. This is the push button. If you can see, it just springs back each time you push it, and it only makes contact when the button is depressed. Now you could use this button to activate your high beam and low beam, but you would be forced to use two relays. You would have to use a latching relay, which is going to give power with one push of the button and take away power with the next. But because of the, let's call it, reliability of the newer latching relays that are available, they're not set up for any high amperage type of activation. So when you're talking about headlights, especially high beams, they are up there in the amount of amps that are the headlights draw. And so you would be forced, and which is the way we've been doing it lately, to have the latching relay activate a Tyco relay. And a Tyco relay is one of those 5-pin automotive relays that everybody's used to seeing, even in the Ron Francis harness. Those are the type of relays that they use for the fuel pump, for the horn, and for, what's the other one it's used for? The cooling fan in the Ron Francis harness. So we want to eliminate that latching relay and instead use a latching switch. So what we did is we took the dimensions and the specs from this switch that Russ supplies, and we sourced out a latching switch, which is this one. And if you notice, when we push it down, it'll hold itself down and click, and then when we hit it again, it pops up and breaks contact. And I've already gone through the effort of soldering and heat shrinking some heat shrink tubing on the terminals, and this is about ready to go in. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread this back down through the turn signal stock, and then we're going to thread the wire, the button into the end of the turn signal stock, and then we're going to have these wires just out of the end of the turn signal switch like it came supplied from Russ, and then it'll be ready for installation into the car. Alright, so now we have the new switch in, and it will engage and disengage just like it's supposed to. We have the wires fed down through the inside of the turn signal stock, and then if you paid attention while you were pulling your turn signal switch apart, you'll see that through the inside right here is where these wires are going to pass down through. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the wires. We're going to feed them down through the chase in here towards where the other wires are coming out. We're going to pull them out. Get them even. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take, I like to use my index finger to get it started, and push these back, those little spring clips, and then slowly work the turn signal switch back together. And sometimes it takes just a little bit of finagling to get it to all go back in where it's supposed to. So don't get discouraged. If it doesn't go, don't force it. And then once it goes together, we'll put the snap ring back in, and then it'll be all set to go back onto the shaft. Alright, So the snap ring is all back in there where it's supposed to be. Make sure at this time that this turn signal switch still activates the way it's supposed to. So if you turn it one way, the pin pops out that side. And then if you turn it the other way, the other pin pops out that way. And you're good to go. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the shaft. And you're going to take the hub. You're going to put it back together. Get it in the orientation that you want it in. And then snug down the screw. Now I will say, you're going to have to disassemble it again when we put it in the dash, because this whole assembly will not fit through the front of the dash panel. So remember, when you loosen up this screw to pull this thing apart, do not pull the screw out all the way, because there is actually a flat or curved metal piece that puts pressure against the shaft, and if you pull this screw completely out, that little piece will fall out, and it'll be on your workbench or wherever you pulled it apart, and you'll be wondering what the hell this little piece is from. Well, it's from this. I speak from experience because I've found one of those on the floor of the shop one time, and having not remembered what it was for, that car went out with only the screw holding the shaft, which is probably just fine. However, it's not the way that Russ designs this thing. So you want to make sure that you put it back the way you found it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. We will bring you back later in the build to show you exactly how the latching button works with our high beam, low beam. But for now, we've got the turn signal switch all put back together. It will be installed in the car probably here within the next few weeks. And we'll drag you guys along when we get to that portion of the build. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.